What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, we've got to talk about The Lord of the Rings Gollum. I was actually going to do a news recap. I wanted to talk about a couple different things, but you know what? Sometimes you have to just go for the big one, and I want to be clear on a few things, okay, starting off. And number one is that I haven't played this game, right? So anything that I'm about to say or the entire video, I totally get if you say, well, Alex, if you didn't play it, it doesn't matter what you say. That's fine. I give you that respect. Hopefully you give me some respect, and we can go our separate ways. That is totally cool. But I got to talk about this situation, right? The fact is I have seen a good chunk of this game. I have seen specific reviewers that I very, very much trust. We've talked about review scores and how, game journalism isn't at the top of their game right now. But, when a game gets like in the mid 30s out of 100, not like 3 out of 5 stars, but, like a 3 out of 10, when it's like that's unanimous, there's probably something going on. When I go to people that I trust and they say this is the worst game they've played in years or one of the worst games they've played of all time, then you look at it with your own set of eyes and you say, okay, I can see it. I can see why it's that bad. Then you start to form an opinion. But there's actually quite a bit to discuss with even the fallout of this game. So, in short, the game looks atrocious. Now, I did kind of see this coming, to be fair. I was probably even on like the high end of optimistic of this game because whenever there were being new things of this game, I would say, I'm unsure. That's actually what I used. I said, and I made a video, I think, on the main channel, why I'm unsure about the Lord of the Rings Gollum. So I never said flat out like it looks despicable or, even 100% chance that I wasn't going to buy it. I actually was never even there. There's history to prove that. So I always tried to give this game leading into it a fair shake. But then, reviews drop the morning of. So you could play the game before the reviews dropped of the game. That's a bad sign. Then the reviews come out and obviously everything happens, and then you start to just see the full-on game. Now, technically, the entire game was leaked a few days ahead of time. Now, I've seen different reviews. Mr. Matty Plays, I think, was a really good review. Skill Up, obviously, did. I think Skill Up's is very detailed, goes through several of, this game, what is this game and how does this game operate? Let's look at how the AI moves around. Let's look at how there's just no good ideas in this game, things like that. I think he did a really good job. So I just don't think this game is any good. And also, one thing I have been very critical of that I don't know who you want to blame. You don't have to blame the developers if you don't want, but somebody had to have made this decision somewhere, is the splitting up the game, right? The $10 Precious Edition thing, locking a language that NPCs say. I was very, very critical of that because that is 10, 15 years ago, that attitude of the gaming industry that we can cut literal just things that are basic things that are in the game. Background NPCs talking, and then you cut that from the base game, and you say you have to pay us $10 extra for it. Emotes. Gollum does 6 emotes that look really bad, and that's part of the $10. Or I think maybe that's a pre-order. I think you have to pre-order to get that. But, cutting these things that are not really good in the first place from the base game, and you have to either pay or pre-order or whatever to get that. That is really bad behavior. That is, again, that's a relic of 10, 15 years ago. We were mean to it back then. We should absolutely be mean to it now. I think people are more sensitive now, but it doesn't change the fact that you don't get to do it. Now, again, I don't know who I want to blame or who you should blame, right? Is it the developer themselves? Is it an executive at the developer? Was it the publisher that threw that in there? See, this is why maybe transparency is good to see. Maybe you should be transparent, and if you all want to stick up for each other, and which we'll get there, and maybe we'll have to kind of lead into that right now. So, look, the game comes out, and it's, blasted by everybody, and I think rightfully so. What do you expect us to do with this game, right? Do you expect us to, be kind to it? No, that's not to say that every single person that buys this game is going to hate it. That is not true. I'm sure there's people that are going to buy this game that are going to enjoy it, and that's totally fine. I would say the same thing I said for a game like Saints Row. When there's a game, in my opinion, this bad, I do question why you would choose to buy this game over other games. You got Street Fighter, you got Diablo, you're going to have Final Fantasy, you just had Zelda, you had Resident Evil, you have indie games. Planet of Lana is a phenomenal Game Pass game. So you do what you want to do with your money. You do what you want to do with your time. I just think, okay, well, I mean, I would think you would do it with like better games, but that's my opinion. That's not, it's not up to me what you guys do. So I do want to make that kind of clear that, it's up to the person, and there are going to be people that enjoy it. But I mean, again, factually, you look at this game and you say, you can't like let them get away with this, right? Like, even though maybe 10, 20% of people that buy it may like it, that doesn't mean you let them get away with it. Now, again, now we get to the aftermath, all this stuff where you're not allowed to criticize. This is something, granted and brutally honest, I try to play pretty nice. I try to play pretty safe online. Developers are human beings. I have no reason to super blast them or to make them my enemy or things like that. So I do kind of watch my words generally. I guess that's just like the truth of it. There are some things I hold back generally just because of Twitter or YouTube or things you're not supposed to say, whatever. Anyway, so they, I think, have taken this approach, and we've seen this approach before. You're not allowed to criticize. This is something I've primarily seen with gaming journalism. I think I can make a direct one-to-one comparison here. When gaming journalism, when a journalist writes a god-awful article, when Kotaku talks about the presidential race between Joe Biden and Donald Trump in their PS5 review, the once every 7-year console, huge, sells tens if not hundreds of millions of units, they decide to put in a thing about like the real world and the presidential election. When you do that, you deserve to be blasted. And we know the writer, so we actually know exactly who to blame. And actually, anybody that approved that, we can also blame them. But here's the thing that you find in gaming journalism is everybody kind of bands together, right? They all think exactly the same. They are all basically exactly the same. And so when you attack one, an attack just meaning, why did you write such a stupid thing? Then they all get together and say, you can't do that. You can't. This is a human being. You're not allowed to say they did something wrong. And this is a thing in society that I really don't enjoy, and I think that it's a really, really bad thing. Now, why am I saying all this? Well, it directly relates to this. I think you're starting to find that with gaming developers as well. Now, you don't get, there's a lot of bad game journalism. You could go on any site and find a bad article, probably right now, maybe even from today. If it's Kotaku, for sure today. But for games, you don't always get a game that gets like a 35 on Metacritic, right? It's actually pretty rare. The Redfalls of the world, although this year is seemingly like Forspoken, Redfall, Gollum. For some reason, this is like an odd year. But normally, 1, 2, 3 games a year, let's say, right? And I mean, it sounds like a lot when it all happens like in back-to-back months like we're kind of getting. But in reality, if you get 3 games out of like 500 a year that are abysmal, it's really not all that much. So when you kind of gang up on it, now you're kind of seeing online, you're not allowed to do that these game developers are human beings. Well, they are. They definitely are, and they deserve respect, but they also deserve to be met with criticism for their work or praise. So, like, when a game does good, why do we praise them? Like, they did the work, right? So that's why we're praising them. They did good work that people enjoyed. So you praise them. Also, they're making a consumer product. They're charging, this is not charity. You're charging $60 for this game. So you don't get to just say, well, we're making a product for a group of fans, and also like Lord of the Rings fans, but even taking that out, you're making a product for a group of fans, you want them to buy it, and then if they do buy it, or even if they don't, they're allowed to say what they want about the product. You charge them money for it. Even if you don't charge them money, you still want people to play it. So ideally, you would want some sort of like reception for it. Does any of this make sense? I think it does. And I don't know why on the internet, for some reason, you're not allowed to say this thing. This game is a full price game. It's a game that costs a lot of money. I guess that's relative, but it costs money just in general. And when you buy it, you have the right to say it's garbage. If you think that, I'm not saying, okay, I'm going to skip right by that, right? You can say whatever you want. So when people are going after this game and everybody's banding together and saying, well, look, stop being so mean to these developers. Well, what is mean? Is saying that this is one of the worst games of the last 10 years mean? It probably is, but is it true? Probably. I can tell you just from like looking at it, I think this game is definitely worse than Redfall. Now, I played Redfall, I didn't play this, so I guess that's subjective, that's my own opinion. I also played Forspoken. But what do you want people to do? Just like accept it, play the game and say, well, that was trash, but there's no reason to like, I guess like if you have nothing to say, don't say, but again, like they're charging you money. And like, don't you want these things to get fixed? Don't you want this to never happen again? Because if this game like sold well, let's say, and then you're not allowed to say anything about it, well, what message are you sending them? You're sending them the message that you bought their game. And I guess that you have nothing to say about it because you're not allowed to. It doesn't make any sense to me. And then the final piece to the puzzle really is their apology, which I almost get angry reading. So they issued an apology maybe like 10 minutes before I recorded this video. And here's the thing that upsets me, okay? The apology goes into like, this game isn't up to our standards. It's not what we wanted to release. Well, look, this game was delayed like 3 times. So what game did you want to release? And then they go on to say they're working on getting patches and updates to make sure people can experience the game like at its fullest potential, or at the top of its game, right? And the thing I would counter with is, well, from what I've seen, and maybe people can back me up, from what I've seen, the visual fidelity and the glitches, like, yeah, they're bad for sure. But from like listening to what the people are saying, now again, like how they perceive the game, that's subjective, that's their opinion. But like when I hear about how fundamentally basic this game is, or you see the parkouring or the climbing where, the walls are like colored yellow, right? So you know where to jump and swing, and just everything looks so basic. When you see the AI do some of the most like 2-year-old kind of behavior, like it's not complex at all, right? Mr. Matty Plays was saying something like the early Mario games have more complexity in its controls than Gollum does. I believe him. But like when you hear that and you see that, it's not just somebody saying it, you can see it in the game. Well, those are not fixed with bug fixes and patches. So what annoys me so much about the apology is they are apologizing to an extent, but it seems like they're apologizing primarily, and they're promising to fix primarily update, like, bug fixes and, things like that. That I don't think that's the main issue with this game. I feel like watching it, it's just not a good game. Like, fundamentally, from its core, the tasks that you do are idiotic. They're very simplified, but they're also like really dumb. Like, just everything about this game is bad. So like if you fix Gollum's like posture in a bug fix, like that's not gonna help the game. You know what I mean? It's not gonna do anything. I think at some point, like, so again, who do you blame? In this case, like, I don't know. I want to say I blame the developers. That's what I want to say out loud. So I'll say it because I don't know 100% sure. But here's what I'll tell you. Again, like the splitting off the $10 thing for the Precious Edition and stuff, right? That could very easily not be them. And so they maybe deserve zero blame for that. At the same time, again, like, say it. These developers are so... And again, like as we just talked about, they all band together, right? Because you'll get developers from other companies that say, well, we're all human. You don't go after them because we're all human. They made a bad game. Nobody wants to ship a bad game. Well, who made that game? What is the reason that game is bad? Who caused it to be bad? If you're all going to defend each other, then go one step further and say whose fault this was. Who made that AI? Whose choice was it to do that? Now, if it was an executive not from the developer, shout them out. Shout that company out so we know. Or just accept the blame because maybe it was you. And I mean, come on, for some of this stuff, considering it's in the game, again, splitting off like DLC and the NPCs talking into its own like $10 tier, maybe that's not them, maybe it is them. So you don't really know. But like, how the game looks, that's them. That's the art team, that's designers, that's all that different stuff. Well, designers, how the game is designed, how the game operates, that's them. The writers, the writing seems very not great from what you can read, and the acting is pretty okay, but from what you can read, not very good. Like, you should be able to, again, I'm not saying threaten or harass, absolutely not. But like when you just say, the game sucks, this game is really bad, and that developer, maybe they just don't know what they're doing. Maybe they're just not to the talent needed to make a game, of a certain level. Is that mean? I mean, I guess, but you're making a game and you're charging money and you want me to play the game and you want, like, what are you supposed to do? I guess not buy the game and never talk about it. Like, literally pretend it doesn't exist. But, like, all right, do people really do that for anything? Movies, television, games, anything? Do people just like full on reject it and pretend like it never existed? So that literally means like not talking about it, not talking about it and saying, well, it's so bad it shouldn't exist. No, literally pretending like the thing didn't come out. Did we ever do that? Did we do that for Saints Row? Did we do it for Redfall? The console warriors, do they want to chime in, right? When you go after Forspoken and Redfall and stuff like that? Do we want to go after, Lord of the Rings Gollum is not an exclusive. I could keep going. Video's getting a little long, so I'll end it here. Let me know. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure you guys are subscribed, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.